How loyal and what a great dude he is. And Tim Brando, Fox Sports, another game this weekend, college football. And yet he just landed in Spokane, Washington, and has time for us. We appreciate it. Timmy B, college football. I know you love doing anything broadcast, but how much fun is this every year when it starts to crank up?
Oh, it's the best, David. It's great to be with you guys. With the Smokes and with Catalina, it's great to be with all of you. And I'm on the road to Pullman. I got Sue driving me. She's got me in great shape. And we're going to stop for coffee probably after I get done with you guys because, as you can imagine, I slept from Shreveport to Denver. I slept some more between Denver and Pullman. The best news is now United will fly me direct from Shreveport to Denver, so I don't have to take 3 flights. This was a 3-popper.
Wow.
Until about 6 years ago when United started flying direct from Shreveport to Denver. So it's a little easier now than it used to be, but this is not – I mean, Manhattan, Kansas next week is a layup compared to – that should put it in perspective for you, right?
Yeah.
Manhattan, Kansas, the mini Manhattan is a layup compared to Pullman in terms of places to get to. But it's beautiful here, and it's 94 degrees when I landed. So we're going to have a warm – I mean, if you're going to come here, come in early September or mid-October, because if you're here in November, God only knows what kind of weather you're going to have. So we're excited about it, and Devin and I have now got 2 games in the books, and I'm really enjoying working with him. I think we're going to have a lot of fun. We had a great game last week, much better game than we anticipated. Western Michigan gave Wisconsin all they wanted, so we'll see what happens. Texas Tech's trying to find a defense. I think they expected a little bit more from that side of the ball than what they got last week against Abilene Christian. And, this kid Mateer that took over for Cam Ward, I can see now why Jake Dickert, the coach here at Wazoo, was okay with Cam leaving because that kid's got a lot of talent. So Washington State's got 2 games against power conference teams, and it's this week and next week. They play the Apple Cup game, which used to be, that rivalry weekend. That game used to be a game we would have the last week in November, and all the rivalry games are being played now because of the breakup and Washington going into the Big Ten. That game is going to be played in Seattle at the Seahawks Stadium rather than at Washington or in Pullman. And this game against Texas Tech for them is huge. And the game against Washington, even bigger. And then they play basically Mountain West teams the rest of the year as they try to figure out where they're going to land 2 years from now. What's going to happen with Oregon State and Wazoo will be determined in a couple of years. They won that lawsuit, and they've got $52 million coming into those schools, each one of them, for the next 2 years. All of the Pac-12 money that was going to other schools is now coming to them. And that's why they stayed where they stayed and are going to collect all these checks and then try to reorganize and find a new home for themselves.
Tim, what's been the biggest surprise for you the first 2 weeks?
Wow. I think for me, I think it's balance. I think the balance has been just tremendous. When I see, now I knew already, you guys know this, I'm a fan of FCS and I'm a fan of high-end Group of 5 conference schools. But when I see a team like Western Michigan with a quarterback with a 7th offensive coordinator go in and look pretty good and have some quality running backs. Now, I know Wisconsin was probably vanilla holding back because they've got Alabama coming up in 2 weeks from last week. They're playing South Dakota this week. And actually, Spencer's going up there this week with his partner to do his game on Saturday afternoon. But I think the balance, Montana State going in and beating New Mexico, then New Mexico for 3 quarters is giving Arizona all they want. Early season, it's just you find out a lot, I think. But I think everyone that's talking about the rich get richer, and I know they do. I just think the balance in college football and the parity, because of the portal and NIL, it is going to be one hell of a November. I mean, there could be 30 teams, 30, going into the month of November thinking they got a shot at the 12-team playoff. I believe that. I really do.
Tim, you do your weekly rankings, and I know you've got your own twist on how you do it and what they mean. But I noticed that coming out of week 1, no Michigan on there. Understandably, it didn't look real great. But what does that what does that mean for what you think about this weekend with the Texas Longhorns rolling into Ann Arbor?
Well, I do think Michigan would be right outside the top 15. No, I wasn't terribly impressed with what they did in the opening game. I thought Fresno actually had a couple of other chances to score and didn't. I thought the game would be relatively close. I've seen Fresno State; they're well coached and have had great success in recent years. You know, Tedford stepped away again. They've got a new coach, but they've got a solid program. So I wasn't disappointed necessarily in Michigan. I just don't think they've got the personnel, and I think that'll show up in this game with Texas. Now, the game being in Ann Arbor and an early start could be a bit of an equalizer for Big Noon, and that may keep the game close for a while. But I think Texas has just got way too much ammunition and will pull away, probably cover the number. What is the spread in the game, by the way?
I think it's like,
what is it?
I thought it was like 5 or 6 or 7 now, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think they'll cover that. I think they'll cover that. I think they'll win this game by 2 scores. I do. But I think it'll be competitive, David. I think it'll be competitive for probably 3 quarters, maybe well into the 4th. But I think having to play the game when they're playing it, you know, Ann Arbor and the Big House that's a challenge for a team like Texas. They don't travel in that direction, even though the weather's not going to be a factor. Teams like Texas don't travel into that environment. And I'm already hearing the moaning and groaning from Texas fans about the mean start. Get over it. Get used to it. It's the number 1 window in college football on television. You're going to have to play some of those games from time to time. You may be with the SEC on ESPN, but if you play a team from the Big Ten, by God, you're going to have to play at noon.
Tim, your thoughts on the nearly catastrophic start for 2 teams that sure did get angry in the offseason, and one of them that's been angry since December, even though they had a right in Florida State.
Yeah. Well, this is an example, I think, guys, of what goes on with a pro. And you used to hear Saban talk about rat poison and, you know, what the kids hear on campus. And this is, I think, a case of, first off, Uiagalelei is not the quarterback that you really want to go out and get. Okay, I don't know that you want to win that prize. He didn't get it done at Clemson. He was just pedestrian, really, under a great coach, Jonathan Smith, at Oregon State, and he winds up going to Florida State. And I don't know that that's the guy you necessarily wanted to have as your quarterback. That's number 1. Number 2, and I think even more importantly, is all the talk around campus. Tallahassee, if you've ever been there, and I've been there many times, like a lot of college towns, state capital of the state of Florida, but still a relatively small city for a state capital, and they hear the noise. And I think that too many people have had their eyes on all the issues surrounding where the big picture of the program lies long term. At some point, that's going to filter down to the program, to the team, to the coaching staff, to the players, and because it's just a lot of noise. And I think that distraction, in my mind, has to have played a role. I can understand losing the game in Dublin to a team like Georgia Tech that's really well coached and is turning things around. I think the Jackets are legit. I really do. And this isn't to throw Boston College under the bus, because Bill O'Brien is a hell of a coach too. And Castellanos, the transfer from UCF, one of about, I think, a dozen that left Gus Malzahn. He's a good quarterback. Hell, he looked like Cam Ward out there. He really did. But Florida State was deficient. I thought they were not into it. And it looked to me like the coaching staff was having some issues during the game as well. And Norvell's a hell of a coach. I think that they can turn it around. But you can't tell me that the issues off the field that have been affecting the people so-called on the Hill, the suits, if you will, of the program, the alumni base, at some point that gets down to today's players. They hear these things. It's not like they're on what's going on. And the combination of that and the massive turnover, and this may be the most critical aspect, they did really well in the transfer portal last year. I don't know that they did nearly as well at the portal this year. And that's going to show up from time to time, fellas, with teams whose success is based on how well or how poorly they did in the transfer portal.
Tim, you're right about Tallahassee. Spent the greatest 4 years of my life there, and I'll tell you.
Well, then you know.
Yeah, I
then
mean,
you know.
It's you can't take a step. It's like Lincoln. There's like 20 towns in America that are like this, and they're all, the teams that have won national championships recently in college football.
Well,
you can't take two steps without seeing, a
Clemson's
barbershop.
the same way.
Yeah, it's
It's
everywhere.
Yeah.
So there's no way. And then given the way that communication goes so fast now, there's absolutely no way that you could. What do you think about Clemson and where they are? Because it appears to me that transfer portal Dabo's things notwithstanding, it appears that his high school recruiting compared to Georgia's, which was neck and neck 5 years ago, is really taking a step back.
Yeah, and especially on the offensive side of the ball. That defense. But to me, just watching that game, and because we did a game on Friday, this is one of the great things, guys, about doing these Friday games. Now I've got a Saturday night one, and it's late. It's almost like Pac-12 after dark.
Yeah.
But the Big 12 has informed us, don't say Big 12 after dark. Okay, that's a Pac-12 thing.
Wow.
They don't want that. So, they have. They're adamant about it. And I'm fine with that. But the game will be on at 9 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock Eastern time. And, it's got Washington State in it, a Pac-12 team. And I can't tell you how many Pac-12 games I did at the end of the night on Big Fox in the last 11 years, but quite a few. But the point I'm trying to make to you is, when you are in a situation like the one that they find themselves in at Florida State or at Boston College, if you're playing a team like that, a team comes in with venom and they're ready to go and they're ready to beat you and pull it out. You don't know what you're necessarily in for. And I think Clemson is a team that, frankly, if you look at Dabo Swinney's recent history, it's still fantastic. I mean, you'd have to put him in the last 10 years on the Mount Rushmore of coaching. I mean, he's the guy that put a dent in Nick Saban. He was the first guy that put a dent in the Nick Saban. But he did it with Deshaun Watson, and he did it with Trevor Lawrence. And those guys are gone. And the guys that you're going to get that are like that now, you may not be able to recruit the Clemson as high school kids and bring them up through the ranks anymore. You have at least got to look at the transfer portal for skilled people. Okay? Receivers, quarterbacks, running backs, and maybe an occasional left tackle if need be, or a corner. All right? You got to do that. And to not adapt to that is just bullheaded. It's bullheaded. And that's where Norvell feasted on Clemson last year. Now, I'd rather be in Norvell's position at Florida State than Clemson, given the way Dabo's going about this, because he's digging in, and he keeps drawing lines in the sand and doubling down on this philosophy of his. And he's going the way of the dinosaur, in my opinion. I'm a big Dabo guy, always have been. I do think he wants to keep that sort of Mayberry style approach that we get your youngins in here and we grow them into men mentality. And there are enough people at Clemson that identify with that, especially the people at David in our age bracket. But in the real world of college football today, you can keep that mentality, but you got to look at least a third of your roster and say, how can we get better quickly? Because other people are doing it, and it's paying huge dividends. Look at Cam Ward at Miami. I think I may have told you guys the last time I was with you. They're going to go into Florida and kill them in the swamp. And they did. Cam Ward could be a Heisman finalist this year. And they found him from where? Wazoo. They got him from Washington State. And they're bringing in an offense that, he was part of, and Incarnate Word, that you guys know, that the offensive coordinator at Texas Tech, the guy calling the plays, had him. He was awesome. You got to go and find guys and get them quickly, difference makers at the quarterback position, because it's a numbers game now. And I don't mean just with your roster. I mean, you got to have the money, and you got to spend the money properly in the transfer portal. And if you don't, you're going to be losing ground year after year after year. To me, the Clemson problem, Paul, is a much bigger problem than the one Norvell has at Florida State. I think his issues are on the periphery. He's got to limit the noise. I don't think it's necessarily with his roster as much as it is with just the mindset and all of the political goings on of the plight of Florida State within their conference and what league they want to get in and all that. They got to find a way to eliminate that noise. I think the Clemson problem is more long-lasting.
Tim, thank you. I know that, again, for you to jump on when you had such a crazy long day, tiresome day, one question I always try to ask you about the broadcast itself, and you could do it in a couple minutes or so, but does Fox set everything up for you and then send you your itinerary? Do you do the itinerary as far as the airline tickets? How does all that work?
No, they do it all. We figure in there in the equation. They've got a travel department, yes. They have a production manager, yes. I don't deal with it because my daughter, who handles literally all my business end of what I do, whether it's speaking engagements or about travel, she coordinates with them, and they get the itinerary sent to us. And we know for the first 3 weeks, like I know I'm going to be at K-State next week. We'll find out this coming Monday after the game Saturday night. We'll find out on Monday whether we're going to be in Lincoln for the game with Illinois, which I believe that's where we're going to be on the 20th. Or if Benetti and Brock wind up going to that game, and we'll get the number 2 game on Saturday, which is fine because it's going to be a great game. We know it's going to be a really good one. I'm pretty sure we're going to wind up at Lincoln for the Illinois game on the 20th. But once we know that, then she's in touch with the people at Fox, and they coordinate all that. They take care of it, and they have to.
Yeah,
they have to because it's tough enough just to prepare for these teams on my end of it. Now, a lot of the guys, and maybe when I was younger, I might have been more involved, but Terry's got too much for me to do at home. I mean, just getting my depth chart and my boards together and looking at the video, I can get it done and do a great Saturday show like I used to back in the day. But David, I couldn't do it plus a daily talk show like I did 11, 12 years ago. I just don't have the stamina for that, nor do I want to do that anymore. Yeah,
no question. And you got to jump in the pool with the grandkids whenever you're hanging around with them like you did. That was awesome. Hey, get some rest. Get some rest. Can't wait to listen to you late night on Saturday. Tech and Washington State, Timmy B will be there, and look forward to that broadcast. Thank you a lot. Tim Brando, who just landed like a half hour ago in Spokane and now driving down to Pullman for that game with Washington State, Joey McGuire, and also Texas Tech.